Good morning. Today, the title that I've selected is 2012, Stopping Tyranny in Its Tracks. And my blurb, make no mistake about it. The greatest protection against tyranny and totalitarian empire building already exists in the United States in the form of our founding documents. Those in power wish to ignore or even cancel those documents. If they were to totally succeed, the horrific New World Order would be the reality the controllers have long envisioned, which is why this nation, reborn and reinvigorated, is the most important change that can happen for world peace. Oh, how I wish people could see the bigger picture and stop buying into the hot button issues that are used to divide us. Let me say that may sound very American of me. And by American, I mean United States American. There's a lot of people in North America and South America that resent people from the United States calling themselves Americans as if they're the only ones. Everybody on the two continents is an American. So I'm not meaning American that way, but the way that it is normally used is we think of people from the United States as being the Americans. And we hold a significant place in world history, in my opinion, and it's my opinion, because of our founding documents. They may have been Masons that created the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, but they laid for us the foundation for freedom. And they built in safeguards, checks and balances to keep centralized government from becoming the onerous monster that it has become. Why has it become the onerous monster? Is because little by little they have chipped away at the foundation of this nation. I mean, it's been going on for over 100 years. Following the Civil War, they began to make the United States of America a corporation. It took them 100 years approximately from the founding of this nation to accomplish that. Actually, less than 100 years from the time that it actually began to operate, with George Washington being the first president. And we've gotten to a place today where we even have presidents of the United States who take an oath of office to uphold and defend the Constitution. And they do it on worldwide television. But George Bush referred to the Constitution as just a goddamn piece of paper. And the Constitution may not be perfect, and they've made some things in it since its founding that are actually unconstitutional, setting up the IRS and the Federal Reserve. They're unconstitutional acts. But in any case, what really gets my attention is when people, like yesterday, I posted a thing about Ron Paul on my Facebook page. And one person commented, well, he's great on foreign policy, but he sucks on economics and social issues. Now, this is obviously an individual who represents a multitude of individuals who buy into the mainstream rhetoric, where they take the hot button issues of, well, he's against Social Security, he's against Medicare, he's against education, he's against gay rights. And they see this as something that would be absolutely horrible because they don't understand what he's saying in the context in which he is saying it, which simply is this. The 10th Amendment to the Constitution says that any powers not granted to the federal government in this Constitution are reserved to the states and to the people. What that means is it prevents an onerous federal government from imposing its will on the institutions under it. It moves the governance of society down closer to the people. Now, I know there's an awful lot of people, and I hear them, and I hear them, and I hear them, that say government is evil. Well, it may be, ultimately, that we don't need government. But in order for that state to be reached, we have to rise up in our consciousness within ourselves so that we can love, so that we can be the people that don't need to be governed because we are governed by the love that we are, the love that manifests through our heart, brought into check, bringing our minds and our ego into check, where we're not trying to compete constantly, where we learn to cooperate. But we're not there yet. Same thing with money. People say what we need to do is eliminate money. No. You can't jump from where we are to those extreme positions of eliminating government and eliminating money. And some say you need to eliminate technology, which is absolutely insane. Technology will become our best friend when we use it wisely. The thing is, we haven't used it wisely. The thing is, well, let me just say, I just listened just before I began today's video. Someone had posted a video on my Facebook page, and it's a video by Judy 101. And I don't know who she is. I've seen her once before, so I'm not totally unfamiliar with it, but I really don't know what it is. And her video is, Does Little Grandmother Know What She Is Talking About? And she was taking the little grandmother's love and said she doesn't like even criticizing little grandmother because she's such a loving person who's in touch with the earth. And that's true. I love little grandmother. But I know it's also true that so many New Age type people think that we can jump, that they don't connect their spirituality with anything that's been going on. And one of my main things has long been continuity. There has to be continuity. You can't jump from here to there and skip the steps in between. Though that kind of a leap just cannot be taken. It's not practical, and it won't work. And if that's what was imposed, it would have to be imposed. Jumps, that kind of a leap would be an imposition. Somebody with power would be forcing that leap upon us. Therefore, it would not be free will. It would not be due process, if you will. And I'm not talking now about due process of law. I'm talking about due process of consciousness. We have to grow from where we are to where we're going. But in order to do that, we have to be able to see, to connect the dots. Now, the United States is a terrorist nation under its current governance. Criminals, literally psychopaths, have taken the government in its hands. They bought it and paid for it. They are the bankers. They are the Zionists. They are the Jesuits. They are the Illuminati. All these names you want to throw out there, it's all of that is part of the problem, but each of those is not the problem, because those are still made up of individuals. But the individuals, the ones that have been in control mostly, or the ones that have been trying to be in control mostly, are very sociopathic and psychopathic. They don't have a normal conscience. They do not have normal empathy like most people on the planet do. They don't care that they're hurting the very planet that gives them their sustenance. They don't care that they're hurting other people, that ultimately hurts themselves. They can't see that by imprisoning others, they are themselves imprisoned. That's why they live in such fear and why they want to stop the Constitution and roll it back. And then you have people like Ron Paul, who's the only one talking any sense, that's being given any airtime in the media, and the media continues to try to put him down. And yet Judy's saying, little grandmother has wonderful ideas, but she's saying there's no hope, there's no hope. Because some of the New Agers, I don't know if little grandmother is in this category, want to eliminate technology. They see technology as the enemy. Just like with Ron Paul, they say, well, he's against gay people. He's against the social net, the social security net. He's a pragmatist, for God's sake, but he wants to return things back to the foundation that was laid for this nation, which would be the light of the world and the hope of the world. If we could bring these things out into the wider world, we would change the world. Now, let me tell you, I looked at the Florida Constitution, which came after the United States Constitution. It protects my rights. I'm comfortable with it now. It had some things in it that needed to be changed. It talked about men, not women. It talked about whites, not blacks. Those are obvious. Those are obvious inconsistencies, but they were coming out of the consciousness of that day. Thomas Jefferson had, and a lot of the people that wrote the Constitution, wrote the Declaration of Independence, and worked on these founding documents, owned slaves. Slavery was part of the society and the consciousness of that day. Obviously, those things have to be changed. But we need to make pragmatic steps, and we need to make them in a continuity. There has to be step one, step two, a process where we move from where we are to where we're going. And it may in fact be a generation or two down the road that we don't need to, that we realize, hey, we can do this without money. I don't know that way right now. Quite honestly, money is a medium of exchange. It is not evil, but the way that the monetary system has been set up is certainly evil, where the haves keep getting more and more and more, and they're literally robbing from those that are less fortunate, or ignorant is the truth of the matter, because we're less fortunate only because of our own ignorance, only because we're not smart enough to pay attention and to connect the dots and to find the missing pieces of the puzzle. And so we are easily manipulated and easily enslaved and deceived into thinking that our slavery is actually freedom. It's not. But there needs to be a waking up. And Ron Paul would not pull the social safety net out from under people. And besides, Social Security is not a handout from the government. The government has been stealing from every one of us, not just in the United States, but all governments have been stealing from their people and deriving their power from the people, deriving their wealth from the people, because the people didn't know enough to stand up and stand in their own power and take back responsibility for their lives. They didn't know that. We weren't there. So we've got to get there as a population. And I don't believe all of that is going to happen in 2012. But we can stop tyranny in its tracks by paying attention to people like Ron Paul, who lays his principles. He's a strict constitutionalist. He's not going to take rights away from anybody because freedom is protected by the Constitution. It's not undermined, it is protected. Individual freedom is sovereign, is supreme. It's the law of the land. What we need to do to stop tyranny is we need to stop the commercialization and the privatization of the entire world economic system. That is where the insanity is. We need to return decision-making into the more local groups, not even at the state level in the United States or in Europe and the various countries which are states. we need to bring it down into the local communities, where each community is sovereign and the people in that community can decide together. Involvement of the people in the process. Do we decide together how we want to be governed? What rules we want to play by? And we have to play by rules, folks. It can't be just a total tyranny of anarchy, because that's not any solution either. Although ultimately, when our hearts are changed, when our hearts are purified, we won't need rules. We won't need to say, don't do this and don't do that, because we wouldn't even think of doing this and that if it's going to hurt somebody, because we will realize intuitively that we cannot hurt another without hurting ourselves as well. This is part of the awakening that is taking place in 2012 as more and more people wake up and are able to connect the dots and see the bigger picture. And we're standing at a vantage point where we allow the process to go through. We ground the loving, nice energy. And we'll ultimately learn how to use technology to create a better world so that we don't have to labor to do a lot of the things that we have to labor to do. That's not a bad thing, because it frees the human mind and the human spirit it frees us up to create, to bring beauty of music and art into the world, which is very, very important. It's right brain stuff that balances the culture. It balances the culture, and we need human culture to be balanced. And the principles of freedom in the founding documents of the United States, which is basically going back to the Magna Carta, but it's also going into the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights. I mean, these are foundational principles that we know about, but we're not doing it because we've allowed the system to be hijacked by a bunch of psychopaths and sociopaths. That's where the change needs to be. But we need to listen to people like Ron Paul. He's telling us the truth. If you'll listen to him and get over your hot button issues of thinking he's gonna hurt something that's important to you. Your freedom is important to him, and he understands that. He's wise enough to get that. He's the only one with any wisdom that's running for office. He's the only one that's got the balls to stand up and tell the truth. And we need to stop. These people that are criticizing them are doing it to their own destruction, because you're proving your own ignorance when you stand and you criticize, because you don't understand and you don't have the big picture, and you've got to get it. Now, that may sound like I'm being dogmatic, but I'm for freedom. I want you to be free. I want me to be free of all the BS that's been in our world. And we can do it, folks. We can do it, and we will do it. Open your mind, open your heart, and allow the wisdom of the cosmos, of nature, to balance you, so that we together can make the changes that need to be made in creating heaven on earth. It's a process, folks, but it's a process in acceleration. Namaste.